anything you're doing that's not going out and validating that people are willing to pay for it is not really optimizing your time. And you don't need to have your product built to go try and
100%.
deliver your
Yeah.
product.
Welcome to the Huckleros podcast with special guest Dustin Wilson of Nextcorps.
Welcome to Huckleros. I'm Mike Brennan. We are recording it downtown Rochester in the Nextcorps studios, world famous, in the historic Sibley building. I'm here with Dustin Wilson of the aforementioned Nextcorps. He is the incubation director, manager, startup community manager. He was my gateway into joining here late 2026 or 2025. And he has a broad background in entrepreneurship. And it's kind of where I wanted to start is...
Yeah. I know this podcast is about me, but can you tell me, how did you introduce this podcast?
Huckleros.
What's the story?
So it's great. Connor had the same question because I was wrestling around with the name, and Huckleros, the origin is, it's actually from an old like judge show that was on the air, and like he was this Brooklyn guy. It was like he was out on the street, like doing his thing, yelling at people with their disputes or whatever, and he'd call people like Huckleros, and it just became, I adopted it, it was like one of these where I bought the domain, and it's been sitting on it. I'm like, okay, we're gonna use it for this podcast. But the reason where the genesis of that is like Hucklero could be anything, you know, it's like it could be this, that. It's interchangeable. It's an interchangeable word. Like I'd say you're a Hucklero, you know, the microphone's a Hucklero, the sky's a Huckle, you know, it's this interchangeable thing. And so I'm branding it as that's because there's a lot of different flavors of entrepreneurs, business people. The type of conversations I'm looking to have is, you know, plug that into Hucklero. So that's what I'm kind of building with that.
It's great. I can give us a good segue here. So when I teach my entrepreneurship course at SUNY Brockport, one of the core tenets that I try to get out of the students or to drill into the students is that an entrepreneur can be anything. Like entrepreneur is very different from startup. Like a startup is like a temporary entity that exists, but an entrepreneur, and being entrepreneurially minded, that showcases and shows up everywhere in the workforce, not just in a startup. And so I think when people have to learn about entrepreneurship, that's one thing that's important to recognize is like startup and entrepreneurs are different things. Often they're synonymous with each other, but startups really are just a temporary business entity until you become a company, right?
And it either works or it doesn't.
Yeah, it works or it doesn't.
And you become a company or, well, what about, when do you stop calling yourself a startup? You know, what's your qualification? Because I know some startups who have been in business, maybe myself, you know, myself included, like for 15, 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends on the person, right? Probably some revenue threshold. Maybe it's an employee threshold. I would argue in, you know, the sort of tech space, it's probably an acquisition once you get people off the cap table, or maybe an IPO. That doesn't really happen around here, but you know, but it's essentially when you start generating revenues and operating much more like a corporate.
Got it.
So if you think about Pat Schreck, right, one of our EIRs here, right, he recognized his startup was becoming a corporation. It was no longer this temporary entity, and that's one of the reasons that he stepped away to go focus on other things, because he knew he liked working in early stage.
In the early stage. Yeah, that's a big transition. Yeah, we'll have to have Pat on to talk about that. Sure. But, and you do find that, I think that is a characteristic of, you know, an entrepreneur is, you know, some do stay and want to build out the company. And you see that with a lot of, you know, founders who, you know, like a Bezos stay with companies, Zuckerberg,
I think
guys at Shopify are saying,
right? They recognize opportunities for innovation, and then they're able to execute on those opportunities, right? And I think the important piece is that they're able to execute on it, because ideas are easy. And, we've all worked in back office rooms somewhere, right? Where
Sure.
you're shooting ideas back and forth with your friends or whatever. And everybody's got an idea on how to improve whatever system they're working in.
Yeah.
But an entrepreneur is able to take that idea and then go execute on it and make it a reality, right?
Sure.
So
sure.
I'll give you an example. I used to work sort of in the corporate world, right? At a safety sign manufacturing company.
Okay.
And their product onboarding process just didn't work for me. So I kind of invented my own. And so that's me being entrepreneurial in a corporate role, right? And then I just happened to be presenting in front of some C-suite executives one day, and I had onboarded more products than anybody else. And so why did that happen? Well,
how did you do that?
I had my own system, and the next thing you know, I'm rolling that system out across the rest of the product team. And
cool.
So there you go. Opportunities abound, right?
So you were fixing what you saw as a problem in a different role where you didn't really ask for permission. You're just like, this sucks. I got to make it better. What was that process that you switched that was inefficient?
We were starting to use a new system called Step. I don't know if it's around anymore, but basically it allowed sort of our CRM data to populate the website. So you only ever had to keep the data updated in one place.
Oh, like centralized.
But it had to be accurate in the CRM system in order to reflect on the data. And then when you're working in manufacturing, there's so many different permutations of a SKU.
Right.
You got to make sure that they're all right. So, my first role at the company was as actually a temp that was harmonizing a lot of the taxonomies and a lot of the way that all of these different attributes ended up on the website.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it was a lot of like Excel, control, find, copy, replace type work.
A lot of manual. Yeah.
AI could do it in a heartbeat now.
Now
right?
it's like, oh my God.
But it opened the door for me to work for the company full time, because I was able to complete that process faster than they had expected.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because I had innate Excel skills from college or wherever I picked them up. And so, it opened a door of opportunities for me
sure.
to go into product management and then learn product management skills from there.
And so it sounds like you have that entrepreneurial mindset where you're like taking an concept and executing that.
Yeah.
Where did that start for you growing up, or was it, was that kind of the first time, or where it all began?
Yeah, it's interesting. I never considered myself exceptionally skilled at anything. We had talked about ADHD a little bit, and I always thought I don't have an obsessive enough personality to be good at any one particular thing. My brain takes me all over the place. And so I'm decent at a lot of stuff, and I don't sort of specialize in one thing. And that's just kind of how I thought I existed, right? And then I was introduced to the concept of entrepreneurship through a professor of mine in my undergrad.
Okay.
Who basically showcased that, I really do excel at one thing, which is identifying problems and then executing on those. And so it was kind of that teacher that opened up this world of entrepreneurship to me, and actually enrolled me in like the Enactus program without my knowledge. And, I ended up
without your knowledge. Yeah. What college class was that?
This was an organizational behavior class.
Organizational behavior. So it was a psychology class, right? Or is that a business class?
It's a business course, but she was teaching it differently. So she was teaching it through the lens of entrepreneurship. So I had to start a business in that class.
Got it.
And it didn't have to be a really viable business. It was just the idea of going through business creation and forming a team and things like that. So actually, I remember we were all graded throughout the course, and sort of my company was at the top of the class. People kind of saw me as a teacher's pet, but I really enjoyed what I was doing, which is why I was accelerating at it, right? And towards the end of the semester, she says, hey, I'm going to take you out of your company. I'm going to put you in the company that's failing, and we're going to see what happens. And so I can remember showing up the first day to like work with that company that was failing. And they're like, all right, what are you going to do for us? And I was like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to help you guys, get better at what you're doing. And it really came down to organization and delivering tasks and incentivization, making sure everybody's on the same page.
Okay.
But we were able to kind of claw our way back to supersede my original company.
Get out.
Yeah. And
so do you remember like what the companies, like the concepts were?
The first company concept was actually much more interesting to me. It was using mushrooms found in Ecuador that I learned about through a Bill.
What kind of mushrooms? In Ecuador.
I don't remember exactly the name of the mushroom.
That sounds like
but
it could be a fun business.
Essentially, the mycelium or some enzyme within the mushroom could anaerobically biodegrade polyethylene and polyurethane.
Oh, wow.
And so our original idea was cultivate this mushroom and then sell it to landfills. So that way they could sort of get rid of the plastic within the landfills and then have more space.
Naturally and organically be
right.
Cool.
The challenge is, one, there was not a single scientist or chemist or anything on the team. So we had no idea how this worked. We had just heard that it worked, right? And then we were kind of looking at potentially finding the chemist or scientist to help us do this idea, because we thought it was
sounds like a
viable,
pretty cool idea.
But the tech transfer program was like, nobody would ever insure this if it happened, because this mushroom's just not studied well enough. And then I believe it was Stanford. It was one of the Ivy League schools, but they were looking at figuring out, okay, how do we just take the enzyme and not have to mess with the mushroom and then go from there.
Yeah, do it in the lab.
Yeah.
Do it in the lab.
And unfortunately, I haven't really followed the technology to see actually what happened with it.
Well, it doesn't seem like much has changed. Anything like breakthrough, I think we'd hear about it, right?
Well, I mean, you can go the conspiracy theory route where they bury these things, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or you could just say, it didn't pan out.
That's where all the missing scientists are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've seen where technology has been squashed for business.
Mm-hmm.
But also,
what about the second company?
The second company was like a winery.
Okay.
I mean, it was just not inspiring at all. But I remember, I don't know why this sticks with me so much, but I remember at the end of the semester, we had to assign our teammates like an animal, like a spirit animal, basically. Okay. And they had assigned me a chameleon, because I could blend in with
That's
I needed.
That's a good spirit animal.
That stuck with me for whatever reason. A lot of life-changing revelations.
So wear a lot of hats, and as your entrepreneur, you really need to wear a lot of hats. You mentioned, what's the program that your professor signed up for you where you didn't even without?
It's called Enactus. I've looked into
Enactus
a couple of times, and I got a award for leadership.
Nice.
So I'm on a plaque somewhere at SUNY Fredonia in the business school.
Oh.
She's since retired, so who knows? Maybe
sweet. I didn't know you went to Fredonia. I went to Fredonia.
Yeah.
I'm probably a little bit older.
I was originally going to be a music industry person. I wanted to own my own music venue.
Oh, wow.
But
I remember you spent some time at Town Ballroom.
A little bit of time at the Town Ballroom, and kind of recognized I didn't want that late night lifestyle.
They got a really great sound recording technology program, or at least they I'm sure they still do. At Fredonia, and they do have
we had a lot of engineering classes and things like that. That was fun. But I went there specifically to get to know Armand Petrie, who's the producer of the Goo Goo Dolls and capstone professor. And then, ironically enough, I did not take the music industry capstone with him. I took the entrepreneurship capstone with Dr. Susan McNamara, who is the organizational.
Oh, that name is really familiar. I think I definitely met her. I was part of their business technology incubator when it first started up. I think it's changed.
I'm sure she was involved with that.
No, there's definitely a lot of meetings and stuff like that. Well, and beyond the professor you mentioned, I know that, it has not many people would know about it, but I forget the guy's name. It'll come to me after we're done recording, but it was called Tarbox Studios. Did you ever hear of that?
No, I don't remember that one.
Okay. It was a little recording studio, and he had something to do with the sound recording technology program there, but he was recording back in the day, MGMT recorded their albums there, Phantom Plant, and really well-known artists would go there, and because it was outside of the norm. I don't know if you ever do you remember the bar BJ's?
Oh yeah.
You go to BJ's and you see these recording artists that were in town. I remember I was in there once, and my buddy was working. He was like, "Oh, that guy from Blues Clues is here." I'm like, "What is he doing? He's doing he's recording an album or something?" It was just funny, but small world. That's cool. That's cool. So so now that's kind of planted the seed of entrepreneurship.
So I tried a couple of small little ventures while I was in my undergrad. My undergrad was a little weird. My brother had passed away right before I started school, so I spent a lot of time going back home.
Yeah.
So I wasn't like on campus making friends or anything like that in my undergrad.
That's tough. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Well, it was I had to make a decision whether I was going to let his passing delay my schooling, or I was just going to dive in and go for it. And so I decided I sort of didn't want him to have that big of an impact on me at the time. So.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, that's difficult anytime.
Yeah.
You know, it's never, no matter what you were doing, it was going to be hard.
100%.
Yeah.
But it kind of helped me get through it. So, but
Sure.
I didn't have a big social life or anything. I was kind of traveling back and forth and skateboarding on the side. And so I'd conceptualized this business idea and then it's basically Mood Media, except I didn't know Mood Media existed, but I had worked on and off for Lowe's and McDonald's and these other like areas where you have an overarching sound system that's just playing music throughout the store, right?
Sure.
And it's heavily curated music designed specifically for, Lowe's clientele.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was
like Muzak.
Yeah. And I'd always thought like, oh man, I bet you there's enough like research to make this music better, right? Not knowing that it was all informed by research to begin with. So I worked at the radio station when I was in Fredonia, and so I would spend a lot of time sitting in the radio station just listening to music.
Shout out FRS.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
And looking at all of the different sort of components of a song that you don't really think about, like beats per minute and things like that. And so, I knew there was some research behind faster tempo music gets people to move faster, slower tempo music gets people to slow down. And I said, I wonder if anybody's applied that to like a restaurant where, you play fast music during the lunch hour and then you play slower
music people, during
the dinner hour just to get them to stick around a little bit more. And so I would basically pull together, a flash drive of 24 hours of music. And then I would go to all the little cafes around and say, hey, my business is curating, a week's worth of your music with this sort of tempo research in mind. Are you willing to try this out? And so I got a couple of
it's a tough sell there. Was it a tough sell? Because it's like, this is what because it kind of makes sense conceptually, but you're like,
yes and no. So at this time, I mean, iPods were big. We didn't have streaming services, right? And so people just plugged their own iPod into whatever sound system they had, right? Whether they had a music license to do that or not, like I don't want to rat anybody out, but you plug it into one speaker and you're kind of good to go. And so it was kind of whatever music happened to be on their iPod. And so when I came in and said, hey, I've got this curated playlist for you that's gonna like cater to your clientele, it was pretty easy. And I was giving it away. I wasn't charging anybody anything for this because I was just trying to experiment, see if anybody was
you were seeing how you were like testing the market with it. Yeah. And
honestly, it cost me nothing because I was making these playlists while I was doing my other job at the radio station. So
sure. So it was like you're testing a proof of concept. And do you remember it was at the cafes down in like downtown? I forget the names.
They're probably not even there anymore.
Yeah, or they've changed, or maybe not. I mean, I think like Pizza Wings and things is probably still there. It's like there's some staples. I haven't been in a while, but
so I toyed with a couple of different startup ideas like that, and then the itch never really left me. And when I started working in my corporate role, I wasn't super fulfilled there. Like, yes, I had kind of been entrepreneurial and come up with this new system, but most of my entrepreneurial ideas were like put on the back burner. It was kind of like, it's hard to steer a big ship kind of a thing.
Sure.
We were a printing company and I really wanted to get into 3D printing and nobody saw the potential in it. And so I was kind of like, all right. And then now they're trying to get into 3D printing, right? Because that's this big thing. But so that entrepreneurial itch was not
years later.
scratched.
They're like, this was like,
But yeah, that
of course, being early is that's actually a good point. Is like being early can be sometimes be a disadvantage. Do you believe? Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, timing is everything. If you think about what it takes to start a company, the kind of the nomenclature in the industry is 7 years overnight success.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're not in a position to go to market 7 years after you start, and that market timing is off, or you get started too late and now you're 3 years too late to be first mover,
right?
So now you're coming to the market 3 years after. Now that technically isn't that bad because you may have some early movers and then you can learn from them and say, okay, I'm going to be better.
Or the market's validated, right? Like I think, that's something where if it's, you're going into a space that's crowded. It's almost, at least it's validated that there's a lot of competition. If you have a unique angle, that's a different, where, because I've heard a lot of people like, well, I'm not going to do that because too many people are doing it. What's your take on?
I mean, every business is different, but just because there's competition doesn't mean you shouldn't start a business. To your point, it validates the market, right? It's how well do you understand that market? And then what are the sort of the gaps within that market that you could use to build a business in?
Sure. So after, did you have any other kind of test beds besides the cafe? Did that have a name, or it was just a concept?
It was just a concept. I don't think it had a name.
All right.
And then in my senior year there, I had to build a business again. The mushroom one was not viable, obviously. So I had basically built out what I consider like a consulting firm for small businesses.
Okay.
And I was trying to create sort of like a template to help get a business started. And I was calling that BARD, which stood for Business Advancement and Resource Development. And
BARD, yeah.
Kind of being a consultant around doing things like that. Couldn't figure out how to monetize that. And honestly, there was way too much imposter syndrome to go around saying I'm a startup consultant. I had never successfully done anything.
Right. Well, you fake it till you make it.
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah, you do fake it till you make it. But another kind of pivotal thing that happened to me while I was at Fredonia was I watched a documentary on Monsanto and how their seeds that you have to repurchase every year were causing farmers in India to drink pesticide as a sign of protest and things like that. And so I was really interested in this concept of business, but I didn't love sort of the results of business being focused only on
talking about it, like getting
value.
So large.
Well,
and
so there's the concept of shareholder value and the concept of stakeholder value, right?
Mm.
And most businesses are focused. I mean, the whole point of a C corporation is to maximize shareholders' value.
Sure.
And so after watching this documentary and then my head being filled with sort of entrepreneurial ambitions, I said, I bet you there's a way. I had no terminology for any of this, but I said, there's got to be a way that business can still be successful while also doing good for the planet. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I started exploring that. And while I was at my corporate role, I started what I was calling I ran into a guy who was trying to run a food business. And I brought those sort of sustainable minded practices towards this. And we ended up creating a cause-based event marketing firm.
Okay.
And the idea was corporate social responsibility was kind of starting to pick up at this time. And you had all of these sort of small to mid-size franchises that had to report up to a larger corporate entity. And that larger corporate entity was looking for CSA data. So like, what did your employees go do?
What's CSA data?
Corporate social responsibility, CSR data.
CSR.
Right? So what did your employees go do? Did they go do like a river cleanup, or did they volunteer over here? And that's kind of how they were kind of
go pick up trash on the highway. I did that at one company. It was, we sponsored this part of the highway.
What they were sending up. And so I would go to these small franchises like an Allstate franchise. I would say, hey, I'm a cause-based event marketing firm. Sponsor my booth at Canal Side, music concert series, right?
Sure.
And I will say on my materials that I'm here because of your Allstate branch, and I will sell my sustainably minded food, right? So we were, our first campaign was called the Soho Project. And it was basically raising awareness for no-kill animal shelters.
Cool.
And so what we would do is we would show up sponsored by Allstate branch XYZ, and we would sell vegan and vegetarian food. And then we would donate 10% of those proceeds to a no-kill animal shelter, whoever we had partnered with at that time, in the name of the
Allstate, the office.
Allstate or whatever.
Yeah, the sponsor.
And so that did a couple of things that was of value to the Allstate, which is one, they were sort of being marketed within this event series that they didn't have to pay a marketing sponsor for, right?
Yeah.
They didn't have to sponsor the actual event. And so they were really interested in that. And then they could tell their corporate overlords, right? Hey, we donated this much money this month.
They're checking a box off on what are their requirements.
Right.
to be part of that franchise or that organization?
I mean, it wasn't like this franchise is going to close if they don't have a good CSR report, but it was like this franchise will get a little extra attention if they have a good CSR report.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they didn't. That was like the cherry on top. What they really cared about was company or customer acquisition costs, right?
Sure.
So if I'm sponsoring you at this booth, I want to know how many eyeballs are getting on my brand,
how many phone calls,
as you're sponsored, right?
Yeah.
And so, people would come to the booth and we would give them our spiel about no kill versus kill animal shelters while we're cooking their food for them. And so they got a little bit of like a education while they're waiting on their food to cook, right? And then at the end of it, we'd collect their email address for our own purposes, but then we would also give that email address to our sponsor, right?
So it's like a double opt-in or not a double opt-in, but like a co-op.
Yeah. And then, I had no idea any of these business terms until I started talking to these people. So I didn't know what a customer acquisition cost was initially. And neither did the Allstate agent, right? Or the person running the Allstate branch, they just said, well, how many people are you getting in front of, right? And then I go Google, hey, how do I calculate, what's the cost of each individual person? And I kind of fumble my way into understanding these business terms, right?
Learning by necessity. I got to answer this customers, sponsors questions.
Yeah. Running that that was the first business that generated any revenues for us. And, we were able to, I was still working my corporate role, so it wasn't paying my bills, but it was paying for my extracurriculars, right?
Yeah. And it was coming from a place of, that social responsibility. Yeah. Sounds like that's important.
It was scratching an itch to me.
Yeah.
And so, we started that business. The first event we did, I'll share this story just because it's incredible what the community will do for you. But we showed up to our first event the day before, and we recognized we did not have the right permit to vend. We did not have a fireproof tent, and our grill was not approved. And so I had to walk around to all the other vendors setting up and say, hey, do you have a spare grill I can use that meets the right regulation? One of them did. Hey,
awesome.
Do you have a tent that we could use, right? And we had this one gentleman who had the grill, had space in his tent. He's like, I don't have an extra tent, but you can vend out of the side of my tent.
Nice.
We weren't competing food-wise, right? And then actually let us vend off of his license. And so just basically showed up thinking I was going to close the business day one. And then just being entrepreneurial and talking to people and networking, ran into the right guy, right, that allowed us to keep the business running. And eventually we ended up renting the grill from him, and then we bought the grill from him, and then we bought that tent from him. And then as we grew as a company, we started producing our own events rather than just showing up to other people's events as well.
Yeah.
And he had got in for free every single time.
That's great. It was like a long-term partnership.
Yeah. And it's kind of fun because there was a bunch of people kind of doing the event circuit at that time. And so if I go to like Lilac Fest, I'll run into companies that I knew back when I was running events, right?
Yeah. Because there's like a circuit. They're all in. Yeah. Okay.
And actually, my business partner is still doing events and things like that now. Different company, kind of rebranded and everything. We basically ran that for 2.5 years and got a little frustrated with each other, and some personal stuff happened where we ended up closing the business down.
But can you talk about that a little bit? Because
back at it.
Are you guys cool now?
Yeah, we're good now.
Okay.
It's a lot of personal stuff on their end, so I don't want to.
Fair enough.
I don't want to give too much of it away. Essentially, they needed to take some time to kind of reorganize their life and get things put back together.
Sure. It wasn't conducive to continue the business relationship.
Yes.
I think that's one thing also that like in this series we're exploring is the obstacles, the stumbling blocks that get in the way of entrepreneurship or your startup. And that sounds like that was definitely one.
This was a legal issue that came back, right? And so I remember just getting a company dissolution in the mail one day because he wasn't able to talk about kind of what was going on, and I was pretty frustrated at the time. But after speaking with him and looking back at it, he did that so I didn't get dragged into all of his other mess. Right?
Yeah,
and so it was it was a benefit for me for one day to wake up and my company's gone. But at the same time,
yeah, that's tough.
Moment,
but it's a benefit for me that I wake up and my company's gone. It's like, how is that a benefit?
Yeah. I mean,
it makes sense, but I see what you're saying.
The wall for a little while, that was kind of like the nail in the coffin.
Sure.
Just because we were stressed. I mean, I was working corporate job, events on the weekends, and then I was paying off my student debt with a part-time job at Lowe's. So I would be up at 6:30 in the morning. I'd work till midnight. And then Fridays I worked on the company. Saturdays and Sundays were event days, and those were often 14, 15-hour days.
Yeah.
So I was 2.5 years doing that. I was burning out quick. And so, you get burnt out, you've got short tempers. And then, you've got everything that happens with the business. Our grill doesn't work. Okay. I'm up fixing the grill, till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Or this refrigerator stopped working.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
Anything that can go wrong.
Can go wrong, will go wrong. And we went through everything, but we learned so much. Actually, my biggest takeaway from that business was I needed to know a lot more.
Yeah.
So as the corporate role was kind of expanding and contracting, and we had purchased another company and then didn't integrate super well, and so there was a lot going back and forth, and it was kind of a tumultuous time within the organization, and it provided me an opportunity to step away. So I had basically been working my ass off for 2.5 years. I had saved up enough money to pay off my debt. And then I had a little nest egg of money to either go travel for a year, take a year off and travel, or go get an MBA.
Nice.
And so I applied to one MBA program. And then I had planned, thinking I was not going to get into the program. And then I had planned basically 1 year of travel, 6 countries, 2 months each. This was in 2019. So
okay,
I got accepted into my MBA program, and I said, okay, I want to go do this because I want to stay in entrepreneurship. There's a lot that I know I don't know, and I really want to understand better how business can work for good, right?
Yeah.
How to take the stakeholders into account, not just the shareholders. Right. I want to continue pursuing this social business idea. Right?
Yeah.
And so I got accepted in the MBA program only because some other person deferred, right? Because I had applied pretty late to the program. But I moved out to Colorado, and I joined my cohort and kind of continued my entrepreneurial career. But had I been traveling, it would have happened right in the middle of COVID. I would have been trapped in the Philippines or something.
Wow. Yeah, that would have been right. We would have a different conversation, I imagine.
Yeah. And COVID kind of derailed my MBA a little bit as well. I had known it was very important to network, right? In my undergrad, I learned that. And so I really wanted to network with people in my MBA, and just COVID made that harder to do because we didn't have in-person classes. There was a bunch
totally
of
difficult. It's like, are you still getting the same value for an experience for that, the other students just a year or two before, right? It's not the same. It was a really big, big shakeup.
So the program I went to was called the Global Social and Sustainable Enterprise Program. It's been rebranded to Impact MBA. And there's kind of 2 tracks that you can take. You can take the entrepreneurship track, or you can take the go into corporate sustainability track.
Corporate sustainability. Okay.
And we ended up doing the entrepreneurship core track, and then conceptualized 100 different businesses. But it basically ended the semester with a business that was viable, that people were interested in, and made the tough decision not to pursue that business because I wanted to start a family.
Yeah.
And I had known
you met your wife out.
I met my wife out in Colorado.
So that was
Boulder native. Right?
Yeah.
And so, so basically made the decision, like, I'm not going to start a startup right now. We were trying to figure out how to make a family work in Colorado. It was just way too expensive. And I was like, I've got ties back to Western New York. I can get a house for under $200,000.
Yeah.
Right. I was concerned about water issues out west, right? Because I grew up on the Great Lakes, and there was rolling water blackouts in Arizona, and I'm like, man, Colorado's not
it's
that
beautiful.
Far off, right?
It's beautiful, but it's those are all things you consider as you're establishing your life and
Yeah.
your family.
Well, I mean, I hope you consider it, but people are still moving to Arizona. So
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
But anyway, it took a little bit of time for my wife to come around, and we kind of looked at the cost of living here. We looked at cost of childcare, both in Colorado and here. And we just decided to move back here. So after graduating, deciding not to pursue my business, I went and worked for a startup for a little while, but I was doing the exact same stuff that I did before my MBA came in.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm just not fulfilled with this, right?
Yeah.
It's not working for me. So my wife supported me for a little while. I left that. I was working kind of as like a brain trainer on the side, toying with a bunch of different ideas. And I came across the guy that was trying to build an entrepreneur support organization that, looking back on it, really should have been a nonprofit. But we were basically trying to figure out how do people with not a whole lot of monetary means contribute to this startup ecosystem with our knowledge rather than just our pockets, right?
Sure.
Our wallets. And so came into that organization and organized it, basically, because I've got a kind of a knack for organization, and kind of like cost accounted out all the different systems that we needed to build this company, but could not figure out a way to make a profit doing it. Going back to, it probably should have been a nonprofit. But essentially what we would do is we were targeting sort of disenfranchised founders, people that are kind of left out by the system. And we said, hey, bring us your business idea. We're going to work with fractional marketing. I was overseeing marketing, branding, and a little bit of biz development just because of my background. But it was essentially, bring me your business concept. I'm going to work with a fractional marketing agent to do a industry analysis. Then we're going to give you 3 different ways to proceed from that. You choose the direction you want to go. Now let's do a market analysis. Here are 3 different takeaways from that market analysis. Now let's go develop our customer profile.
Okay.
Now let's take that customer profile. Here are 3 different options on how you can brand yourself to appeal to that customer profile. And so it was basically, we were doing the work for the founder, trying to educate them as we went as to why we made these decisions. We would present that founder with 3 different options on how to proceed, so it still felt like it was their business. And to do all of that, we would take a small percentage in the company. I think it was like 2% was the max that we would take. But the return on 2%.
Yeah. Well, and you need a liquidity event, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was just not, I mean, we were working with, the people that 2% of all fundraising goes to colored founders, right? NWBE type founders. And then 2% even more of that, it goes to women, right? So like, not a whole lot of funding going on in this space. And so none of our companies really did anything. There are 2 that are still out there that I follow to this day that are doing well.
Yeah. And you still hold
active.
Do you still hold that a little bit?
That was to the company, and I don't know what happened with the actual entity.
Okay. Yeah.
But it kind of gave me this sense of like, hey, if I'm not working in my own startup or with another startup where I don't necessarily have the control that I would want, as most entrepreneurs have, strong opinions about stuff, how can I support entrepreneurs? And so that's kind of what led to this almost decade now career in venture support. One of the companies that gave me an opportunity to come back to Western New York was Launch New York.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I actually got hired by Launch New York. I had interviewed for a marketing position, but after talking about what my sort of goals and aspirations were, ended up in a program manager position, and took over while I was out in Colorado.
Nice.
My wife and I got married, went on our honeymoon, and then I moved to Western New York, and she stayed in Colorado for 6 months. So I said, we pressure tested the relationship quickly with a long distance.
That's good. That's good.
But yeah, that was an incredible learning experience. One of the things I recognized coming out of my MBA was I didn't quite understand fundraising for businesses. I got a little taste of it with NoCap, but I just didn't have a great understanding of like how venture capital works and how it moves. And being at Launch New York really helped me understand and learn that. Working with Marnie and working with Jay, who had been at BlackRock previously, and just understanding how companies like this are funded, how nonprofits operate, and then how investing works was huge to my understanding. And it made it even better for me to be able to take my own experience and now this experience and now help startup founders.
Yeah, here in Nextcorps.
Here in
as
Nextcorps.
A startup, as a startup.
Yeah. So
manager.
basically, I'd had a kid, and I was living an hour and a half away from Launch, New York, and so Nextcorps 20 minutes from me.
Yeah, Launch, New York. They're Buffalo is their main office.
Buffalo headquartered, but they help companies from Albany West, essentially.
Right.
And so, Launch gave me this incredible opportunity to get into this space. And after almost 2.5 years, almost 3 years there, an opportunity came up to shorten my commute by an hour both ways.
Yeah.
And so, focusing on my family, not running a company for my family, like that made a lot of sense to me. And what's great is I still get to interact with my Launch New York colleagues. I see them out at events. I continue to support companies that I worked with while I was at Launch New York.
There's a lot of the same network.
So I'm still very much a part of the ecosystem. And I get to hang out with those people that I loved working with, and
what's your take on the current state of the ecosystem here of entrepreneurs? Who's building startups right now?
Yeah,
and what is their, what is the outlook like? Where do you see things right now? What's your opinion?
I don't know if we've got enough time.
Yeah. Well, or just say, even like this year, like if you want to focus it.
Well, we're coming into sort of tough fund. Well, people say it's tough fundraising, but if you talk to the funders, right, it's going back to the basics, right? We kind of had this glory period coming out of COVID where people had a lot of ideas, people had some money to invest, and even AI like helped with this, right? Where but the reality is you need sort of the basic fundamentals of what makes a business work in order to go fundraise. And even after leaving Launch New York, I've learned a heck of a lot more about fundraising just from talking to other ecosystem partners. And, it's not always the best option for a company. And, once you start fundraising, it's your full-time job as a CEO, right? You're on the Ferris wheel of meeting the next milestones. And it's interesting. It's got its space in the ecosystem for sure. And fundraising can help a lot of people, but most companies aren't really ready for fundraising and don't understand what it's going to entail here.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of the work that we do here at Nextcorps, is helping people understand, is fundraising the right path? If it is, are you in a good enough position to pursue this? And if you are, how do you develop an actual strategy around it? It's not, it's not as easy as it sounds. And there are a lot of people who go into it sort of unprepared and don't come out of it the other side. And so, organizations like ours are there to really help them prepare for the journey. But a lot of people, once they learn what it's all about, are a little more skeptical to do it. And unfortunately, they typically don't have enough runway with their own personal resources to do it effectively. So they feel pinched and sometimes come across as desperate.
And that, I think that desperation is part of being an entrepreneur.
100%. Yeah.
And that's like, when you talk about like Huckleros, is like, what is that mentality that makes you keep going? Or you just get leveled. You're trying to raise around, you fall flat in your face. You don't have money in the bank. You're not even like how am I going to eat? And a lot of people face that, and most reasonable people say, you know what, maybe it's time I look at a different career option, or maybe I shift to this. Some don't, and some push harder. And I think that's what you see in a lot of successful journeys, is that, real low point before something churns. Do you see just in general, the different traits of like that in entrepreneurs, where they have that thing happens and it doesn't, it churns them into something else, or like that mentality of I'm just going to do it this way instead?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because in a perfect world, people would plan before they started a business, right? They would look at how many resources they have. They would give themselves a timeline that's realistic, right?
Yeah.
Not this, oh, I've given myself 1 year to build my business, right? We go back to my earlier comment, 7-year overnight success.
7-year overnight success.
You got to give yourself enough time. However long you think it's going to take to build your business, triple it, right? And make sure you've got the resources for that. So 2 things that I see often when it comes to sort of failing companies. One is did not plan those resources correctly and are not optimizing the resources that they do have, right? And so my view on this as it stands is a lot of founders don't provide themselves measurable hypotheses to go out and test the waters of their business. And so if you don't have something that's measurable, it's hard to know when to quit. And so a lot of times companies exist a lot longer than they should because the actual value proposition was never measured properly. And so that wastes a lot of time, which is probably founder's most
really
important
validation,
resource.
really.
Right. And it wastes a lot of their money, right? So, we've had startup founders that have finally got it pulled together. They've done some validation and then they run out of runway and they got to go back and work for corporate America and their business closes. Not because it wasn't a good idea or because they didn't validate that people wanted this thing, but because they didn't give themselves enough time, right? They wasted too much time doing stuff that didn't actually matter.
So having a plan
in the beginning, right?
In the beginning helps
but that's,
a lot.
That's the perfect world, right?
Yeah.
The reality is nobody recognizes they needed a plan until they run into a wall and then they do
they have a plan. It's not the right plan,
right. Or they do a retrospective, right?
Yeah.
And so I look at, well, what are the root causes of some of these challenges that we have where people don't really save time, money, and resources to work on the next idea, right? They don't quit soon enough.
Yeah.
Right. I often say with the entrepreneurship in residence group program here, like our job is to get you to fail or succeed as fast as possible, right? That's at the end of the day, we need to conserve your resources. And so if your business is not going to work out, we need to get you to answer that as soon as humanly possible. So you have time, money, and resources to work on the next thing.
And in that process, and this is something that I personally believe that the revenue solves a lot of problems typically and it can, and then that's a whole nother probably conversation of like, it can also be, lead you to failure as well too, if you're taking on too much and can't deliver, et cetera. But overall, would you say that, and taking into account the fundraising, taking into account everything you've learned along the way, how do you map out that if somebody's coming to you and saying, hey, I have this idea, I want to come and execute it. How are you helping that person plan that journey out?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I actually kind of developed a little bit of a roadmap for this, but the first thing that I really focus on is how well can that person communicate what they want to do? A lot of times it takes 15, 20 minutes to nail down what it is you're trying to do, and you need to be as concise as possible. There's a quote that I love. I think it's attributed to Mark Twain, but who knows with the internet these days. But essentially the quote is, if I had more time, I would have written less, right? And the idea is you need to work at it, refine your ideas, refine what you want to do, and who you want to do it for, so that you could tell me in a sentence, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times when I first meet founders, they've got a general sense of the problems they want to solve, and they have a somewhat of a concept of how they want to solve it. Usually from a lived experience, maybe sometimes it's from like a recognized opportunity in some other industry or whatever. But as they start digging deeper, they recognize that they haven't been clear enough on either of those two goals, right? They've got this general idea of a problem where it's like, no, I want to understand, like, what is the one thing that keeps your target customer up at night, right?
Yeah.
And then I want to know who specifically that target customer is. It's not, middle school teachers, or it's not Lowe's, or it's not, this broad category. It's like, who's the one person that this is targeted towards, and is it their number one problem? And if you can't clearly communicate what you're trying to do with me, it's harder for me to help you find those answers. As I look at how people engage with entrepreneur in residence programs, both at No Cap and Launch New York and here at Nextcorps, the first 2-3 meetings is just trying to figure out what it is you're trying to do, right? If that was one meeting, you'd make a lot more progress, right?
For sure.
So it's not the easiest thing in the world, but taking the time to really refine and communicate what it is you're trying to do goes a long way. Once you've done that, anything you're doing that's not going out and validating that people are willing to pay for it is not really optimizing your time. And you don't need to have your product built to 100%. Go try and deliver your product, right? So it's about understanding how to do good customer discovery, and it's about having really clear conversations. And it's interesting because when AI first came out, I originally thought like, well, the script is flipped. Typically, we say go to your customer discovery, then build something that serves those customers, and then try and sell that thing. Because building at the time meant hiring a software engineer or hiring a developer or something.
Yeah.
Now that the AI coding is out, like you can build stuff in a weekend, right? So the initial thought was, flip the script, go build it, put it out there, see if anybody wants it. And then there you go. But the reality is, if you build something without doing those initial customer discovery steps, those first steps, you've wasted your time. And the token economy to me is a black hole, right? So not only have you wasted your time, but you've wasted however much money you spent to build this thing.
Right.
And then, making that even harder for startups is now you've got a bunch of half-considered ideas out there that you now have to break through in order to get opportunities. And so now even more than ever, it's back to the fundamentals.
The fundamentals.
What
ties right back into the fundamentals.
Who you're solving it for,
right.
And is it their number one problem?
So using those tenets of business creation, ideation, execution, are there any areas that you see as a real opportunity now, or that's emerging, or that is maybe like, go start, build a railroad because, something that's durable, that type of.
I mean, it's hard for me to speculate on sort of the types of businesses. You're seeing a lot of people. I don't remember who I was having this conversation with, but we were talking about the trades, right? And so typically you had a electrical shop, and grandpap, right? He went out and built a personal network and sold to that personal network, and then son came in and took it over, right?
Yeah.
And he's got all grandpaps, but in order to expand the business, he brings in the website, right? So now he's got a digital presence, and now he's going out contacting people that were outside of grandpap's network because he's got the time and the technology to do it, right? Well, AI is going to be the next website, right? So now grandson comes in, right? And he puts the AI agents together, right? And now they're going out and expanding that accessible pool, right? So that's
or optimizing the procedures, the customer service. We're seeing a lot of that.
I think of AI as a calculator, right? The firms that use it are going to be more efficient than the ones that don't, and efficiency is going to win out in the end. But at the end of the day, if you don't understand what's going into it and you can't conceptualize what's coming out of it, it's not going to help you, right? Like, think of an accounting firm that was doing it all by hand, right? Probably a really effective accounting firm, and then an accounting firm that starts using a calculator. Which one's going to win out, right? But you still have to have the same quality of product at the end of it, right? And if you're using AI and you're not coming out with the same quality.
So I'm hearing, it's just really about the fundamentals of customer, solving those problems. That stuff isn't going to change in the AI age. Which is promising. Is you hear the other side of the doom and gloom of, well, AI is just going to do everything and there's not going to be any jobs. And
well, some of the areas that are really interesting to me is AI to AI built businesses. Like, why build a business for a person, right? Where almost UX and UI gets in the way of these AIs agents, when all you got to do is build the business for the AI agent.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's going to change the way we build some businesses. I think there's going to be opportunities there. That's really interesting. So yeah, building businesses for AI is really interesting. I think once we get an AI native generation, they're going to do some really interesting things with the technology that misses most of us. And then I have this wild idea that human-made art is going to become a raw material. which I don't understand everything enough to really justify this idea.
I like that.
But the concept to me is at some point, these machines need to be fed human created content, right? It's going to homogenize. And so I would love, I don't have the connections for this, but I would love to do sort of like a guerrilla art project where you set a very specific parameters and people around the world create art to those parameters and see how long it takes to skew the models, right? Mm-hmm. But I think at some point, sort of human creation, human art, human artistic expression is going to become a new raw material. And what's really interesting to me is that raw material is accessible to anybody. You don't have to own a mine. You don't have to own land. You don't have to have money to create, right?
Yeah.
But this could just be my pie in the eye idea. I don't understand well enough how much input is needed to influence a model. I just feel as though at some point,
it's a cool concept
in the future, right, these models are going to homogenize, and we're going to need to do something radically different from a human perspective to start influencing these models.
Yeah. And are you seeing, we're talking about, next generation, or anything in your courses or what you're teaching in entrepreneurism, what are those young students are what is their outlook like?
Oh, it's interesting. So I teach freshmen, right? And they're focused on, I just want to make money.
Okay.
Right.
And they're all AI native if they're freshmen, right? Or is that what the term is?
Yes and no. They're getting there. The problem with AI native is we don't understand AI well enough to have like a truly AI native generation yet, because it's just new capabilities every week,
Right.
But yeah, no, their focus is on like, how do I make $1 million, that I can put in a bank and then, live off of that or whatever. So one of the things I push them towards is sort of my second opportunity area that I would recognize, which is, what is community going to look like when you can't trust the digital infrastructure that I grew up with as a community, right? I grew up in the era of MySpace and Facebook.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've aged out of digital socialization.
Yeah. And MySpace is no more.
Right. So I like to challenge my students, like, hey, if you can't trust what you read on the internet and who your friends are on the internet, because they could be bots, right?
Sure.
What does socialization look like to you, right? I always said, I will quit the internet the day I purchase something online, and then my face and voice shows up on a friend's social feed and tries to sell them the thing I just purchased.
Yeah.
Right. And we're close. I was looking at saunas the other day, and my wife texted me and said, were you looking at saunas? Because I got nothing but sauna ads on my phone.
Yeah.
We weren't in the same, I wasn't telling her I was looking at them. I was just, interested.
No, it's proximity. It's proximity.
Proximity, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, there's going to be some company that's got enough data on me to replicate my voice and my face and use that to go, like in Wall-E or something, right? And go sell something. I was like, when the day that happens,
that total person. Yeah, I can see also people being really like repulsed by that. Be like, get that out of here. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now we're seeing a lot of backlash to AI because it's brand new, right? And so I was actually interested, when people create AI generated content, are they going to have to denote that it is AI generated content? And that seems to be the thing. That seems to be the direction we're heading. But you see something enough times, you start to ignore it, right? And so
like
how long,
banner ads,
right? So how long into the future are we just going to ignore the fact that this is AI generated? It's just expected that it is, right? And so it doesn't become off-putting to us anymore because we've been homogenized.
And it's going to get so much better
to it. Yeah, it's going to get so much better. And we're just used to it. It's just the world we live in.
Yeah.
And so, I think this initial backlash of AI-generated content, for good reason, is here. People are afraid of the future. But I think the reality is, and what we've learned is that it's going to be accepted. It's going to be a part of everyday life.
Yeah.
And there really won't be anything that's too far off.
Did you see the recent, what was it, Eric Schmidt, is it from Google? He was an old CEO of Google. He was giving a commencement speech and he was talking about AI. Yeah. Whenever he mentioned AI, all the students booed him. And it's like, and he was just like, coming, you're gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah,
you know, like too bad.
I mean, it's
doesn't care what you think.
I come from a fairly conservative family. I'm probably the most liberal leaning of everybody there. But I remember having a conversation with somebody in my family about electric vehicles. You know, I said, you kind of sound like a horse salesman, right?
Yeah.
Because like at the end of the day, these things are coming, right? And sure, if you're selling horses, you don't want a combustion engine coming to your
right.
your neighborhood.
What's one
right?
business? That's great. Like, what's one business you shouldn't start right now? If we can't talk about, like, is there one that you could say, be like, hey, this is like starting a horse business, or like, you know, hey, I'm going to start a newspaper, you know?
Yeah.
Or maybe that's a good idea. I don't know. Is it, you know?
It's hard for me to say because you might start something that kind of does it differently, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you can take that, run with that newspaper thing. If you did something, I'd see something really focused in a niche community like Brockport or, you know, small town, and you might be able to have something there just because it's a value.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, right? So one of the other things I think about is, you know, my mother has worked in a family-run dental office for essentially her entire career, right? And she's not had a raise in 15 years or whatever, and you know, she could tell you the whole story. But at the end of the day, she likes working there because she knows her patients. It's not what they call a drill and fill shop. It's not over-optimized.
Yeah.
You know, any business consultant looking at the way this business is run would sit down and say, this is not the way you should be running a business, right?
Yeah.
Yet it exists. It persists. People still go there because they want that sense of community. They want to know the people that they're talking with on a regular basis. And that's really important to them. And I think we're going to see more of those type businesses come back because, again, you're not going to be able to trust what's on the internet. You're going to need sort of that human interaction. And while, yeah, AI will help run those businesses optimized in the back, at the end of the day, it's going to be the person-to-person interactions.
There's still going to be human connections that matter. There's still going to be customer relationships that are important, at least in the foreseeable future, I imagine.
Yes, I would agree with you.
Yeah. So I think my inkling is that, I think this is all going to change. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than was originally been pushed in certain narratives. And if these the foundation labs raising, I mean, unheard of types of capital because they're going after the whole economy is their pitch, right?
Absolutely. And I absolutely agree with you. But I think it will come with a resurgence of locally owned kind of community oriented type stuff because people are craving that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But in our lifetimes, we will see sort of, I hypothesize AI just become an accepted part of the world. Right.
Yeah.
Like imagine
like a utility almost.
Yeah. I mean, you know, you could argue, right, whether internet is necessary as water, right? If you think of like services that are coming to your house, you've got power, you've got water, you've got internet these days, right? Is internet just as important as water and power?
Most people would say
argue
yes.
Yes, right?
Most people would say yes, I think.
It's just a utility bill that you have to pay. AI is going to be the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. I tend to agree with that. I think it's just going to be infused everywhere, and we'll see. But it's exciting. It's been an exciting time to be in this. I'm sure you're looking at a lot of different companies, but
I mean, I play with it myself, trying to build
an
app to help.
Yeah, and now you could build something on a weekend and spin it out and eventually have the agents run it for you, and it could be side hustles.
I mean, there's a lot of things we don't like to do that AI and agents can do for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because when I think about starting a business, one of the things that I advise people to do is find a co-founder. I don't really care what the skills of the co-founder are. We can learn skills, but that co-founder needs to be able to drive energy from something you don't, right? So whether that's playing an Excel sheet or picking up a call and cold calling somebody.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will ask me, hey, what's your advice on bringing somebody into the business? And I'm like, well, you got to find people where they're at. They have to have the same sort of risk tolerance as you do. They have to probably be in a similar life stage, or again, have a similar risk appetite. But more than anything else, they have to enjoy doing the stuff you hate doing.
Right. No, you have to, it has to be a compliment where that's, compliment what you're bringing to the table, stuff maybe you don't like to do as well.
Well, and that reframing really helps people, because, you could talk to a founder and be like, yeah, I can do everything, especially with AI. I can do everything. And I'm like, I have no doubt that you can.
Okay.
You can do everything. Sure. Right. But there are things you don't like to do. And at the end of the day, the things you don't like to do are the last things you do. And at the end of the day, you're going to have more to do than you're capable of doing. And at the end of the day, those things that you don't like to do are going to be at the end of that task list, or not going to get completed, and they're not going to move the business forward.
That's true. That's so true. All right. Last question.
Yeah.
Piggybacking off of that, finding a co-founder, could you advise someone to build their co-founder as an AI agent today?
You could. I mean, it's the pie in the sky dream. I think it's a mistake.
Okay.
Because that built co-founder does not have a network. They
Right.
do not have lived experiences. When you bring in a co-founder that has lived a completely different life than you, has a completely different network than you do, has a completely different way of looking at things than you do, they're going to challenge your business in ways that make it better. Or they're going to have the right person in the right network, or be presented the right opportunity to help advance that business, right? If you're using an AI agent, it has no network, it has no lived experience, it's doing what you tell it to do, right? And if you think of all of the skills that a founder, an entrepreneur can have, I think networking is one of the best, because we only have our own perspective and the own opportunities we've been presented. But if you can help person A, who then in turn helps you, right, you've accessed an entirely new sphere of opportunities than you would have had before. And
it's a multiplier.
A multiplier, exactly. Yeah. What do they call it? A force multiplier in the military, whatever it is.
Network effect, if you're lucky.
Exactly. But an agent is not going to help you do that. Now, if your skill is networking and your deficiencies are coding and maybe cold calling, or these things that AI agents can do, you can do that, but you're still missing a very crucial piece, which is the lived experience of whoever that is.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I think I see that. In light of the technology boom, don't lose the human connection and what's important there.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, but I think more important than that, it is the lived experience of another human being,
experience,
right? Yeah. Because you have walked through your entire life from your own perspective, right? And I mine. But if I cross paths with you and I happen to connect, hey, you need this, don't have anybody in your network that can provide that for you, yet you somehow communicate that need to me, and I have people in my network that can service that, now you can move forward, right?
Sure.
An agent is not going to be able to do that for you.
Yeah. That makes complete sense. And it's not for a long time, I guess I'm positing, that the agent will have that lived experience. Even if it's
I don't think it ever will, to be honest with you. I mean, it can connect with people digitally, and maybe it'll befriend somebody, right? But it's not going to have this dream. I'll give you an example. One of the EIRs that I worked with at Launch New York, him and I were just kind of having a water cooler talk before a meeting had started, and he mentioned that he was at an air show, right? And I said, what are you doing at an air show? And he's like, well, I love airplanes. I've always wanted to kind of try and build one, and I've just never really had an opportunity to do so. And in the back of my head, my uncle builds airplanes, right? So, hey, let me get you connected with this guy who's always looking for help, right, to get an airplane built.
Serendipity.
And there you go.
Synchronicity.
Match made in heaven, right? Creative collision, whatever, catalytic collision, whatever you want to call it. But now all of a sudden, this guy that had no opportunity to build an airplane suddenly has an opportunity. An AI is never going to be in that room to have that, connection and that lived experience for you.
Yeah. No, that's wild. Dustin, thank you so much for joining and talking. Great conversation spanning, your background and entrepreneurialism, getting into the whole, spanning out into maybe some unexpected parts of the future. Where should people look if they want to connect with you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn I know is a challenge these days with all the AI content, but LinkedIn's probably the best place to look me up. Just Dustin E. Wilson.
Dustin E. Wilson, Nextcorps on LinkedIn.
Shoot me a message. I'll send you my scheduling link, and we can grab a virtual coffee. Or if you're in the Rochester area, we can go out and grab lunch. Always happy to share my ideas.
Awesome.
Talk to people. My job, as a startup community manager, is to be a part of the community. So come talk to me.
It's awesome.
I've got a resource that can help you, or I can point you in the right direction.
For sure. He's very approachable. So give him a shout out on LinkedIn. And Dustin, thanks again.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being here.